start for some reason. There it goes.
Yep, perfect. Okay, thank you, Bill. So as Bill mentioned, my name is Tammy Radigan, and I'm a contract administrator with the Office of Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning. So we're going to get started with an overview of our office and registered apprenticeship. Next slide, please. So in March of 2018, Governor Murphy announced the development of the first Office of Apprenticeship in New Jersey, as well as the creation of the New Jersey Apprenticeship Network. Next slide. The overall mission in creating our office is to build the New Jersey Apprenticeship Network, which is accomplished by the Office of Apprenticeship working closely with USDOL and serving as a one-stop shop for employers, nonprofits, secondary and post-secondary institutions interested in developing apprenticeship opportunities. It's accomplished by supporting new and expanding upon existing pre-apprenticeship and USDOL registered apprenticeship programs in New Jersey, by establishing pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs in non-traditional high-growth occupations or sectors, by better aligning secondary, post-secondary, adult education, and occupational training to meet labor demands unique to New Jersey and develop career pathways that lead to economically sustainable wages, by developing or helping apprentices earn college credits, access robust career counseling, and increase diversity and inclusion in apprenticeship programs, and lastly, by removing economic barriers to training and upskilling through targeted investments. Next slide, please. New Jersey Apprenticeship Network. So the vision of NJAN is to develop sustainable talent pipelines by aligning pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship opportunities with the needs of employers, training providers, and job seekers. So NJAN is focused on driving economical development through skills and education attainment, concentrating efforts on sector-focused, demand-driven training and education programs that lead to better paying careers, advanced credentials, and skills attainment, and developing an ecosystem that provides multiple years of economic support to businesses and individuals for occupational skills training, leading to sustainable wages and upward mobility for workers and increasing talent pipelines for employers. Next slide, please. So what is registered apprenticeship? So the definition under the Code of Federal Regulations 29.6 is a registered apprenticeship program means registered and approved by USDOL and provides classroom and on-the-job training in an occupation recognized as a principal trade and meets the program standards for enrollment and graduation. So registered apprenticeship, it's essentially a type of training model that works in conjunction with employment, where apprentices are earning while they're learning the necessary skills for the trade. And the USDOL provides the approval of the registered apprenticeship program, similar to how accreditation works for a degree program in colleges. This helps to ensure that the skills and the training that the apprentice receives is consistent for national application in employment for that occupation. Next slide, please. So registered apprenticeship consists of 5 main components. The first component you have is the employer or the industry involvement. So in developing a program, you'll have input from employers and industry leaders, which is used to help guide the training outline for that occupation. As a result, the program structure is then uniform with any organization who adopts that outline for the development of their own registered apprenticeship program. Secondly, you have the related technical instruction. So just like most training programs, registered apprenticeship consists of classroom learning to teach fundamentals and advanced skills for that occupation. Third, you have the employer or the sponsor component for the on-the-job learning component of the program. So the on-the-job training is the employment aspect of registered apprenticeship programs, and it's utilized to reinforce the classroom learning by presenting real-world scenarios for apprentices to apply the skills that they have learned in the classroom. Fourth, you have, of course, the apprentices that are part of the program. And then fifth and finally, you have the progressive wage structure for skills gains. So this is a component that USDOL helps sponsors to determine when they're approving their programs. And what it does is it helps to incentivize apprentices to develop their skills while also fostering that employer-employee relationship. Next slide, please. So here is just a quick overview of the accomplishments of registered apprenticeship in New Jersey. So our current figures, there are 9,206 active apprentices in the state from 6,783. There are 1,424 total registered apprenticeships in the state from 611. Since Governor Murphy took office in January of 2018, New Jersey has registered 804 new registered programs, which accounts for a 133% statewide increase. There have been 22,056 new apprentices hired, 11,049 new industry recognized credential certificates of completion. And according to the data from the last quarter of 2017, the net apprentices increased by approximately 2,423 from 6,783, which is a statewide moving average that includes entrances and exits. And this growth trend accounts for a 36% net increase statewide for active apprentices. So that was an overview of our office and registered apprenticeship. Next, we're going to discuss the pre-apprenticeship programs and specifically our PACE grant. So next slide, please. So pre-apprenticeship and career education, PACE. The mission of PACE is to better align post-secondary adult education occupational skills trainings to meet labor demands unique to New Jersey, to create a pipeline of qualified individuals and enable them to transition into sustainable career pathways, to present opportunities to underrepresented or disadvantaged populations and remove barriers to training, drive economic development through skills and educational attainment, and to promote the value of pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeships programs. Next slide, please. So quality pre-apprenticeship elements. So first, let's start by providing clarity on what a pre-apprenticeship program is. So pre-apprenticeships are preparatory training programs that occur prior to a participant starting a registered apprenticeship program. The key to remember here is that a pre-apprenticeship program prepares individuals for success in a registered apprenticeship. And this is accomplished by providing foundation occupational training, job exposure, workforce readiness training, basically anything that will prepare the participants for successful entry into a registered apprenticeship position. Pre-apprenticeships can also include prerequisites for training for starting that registered apprenticeship program, such as licensing requirements that may be required for an apprentice to enter a job site or anything like that. The United States Department of Labor released an employment and training advisory. It's called the 102323 to define what makes a quality pre-apprenticeship program. And it includes the following. So first of all, you have the partnerships with registered apprenticeship sponsors. Partnering with registered apprenticeship sponsors ensures that the pre-apprenticeship training aligns with the needs of the sponsors and anticipated registered apprenticeship occupational training that ultimately the apprentice will be a part of. So with those partners, you would develop approved training and curriculum and determine entry and or matriculation agreements for placement of the apprentices programs completers. This element, of course, it can't be understated as the goal of the PACE program and the contractual obligation you'll have if you're awarded is to place program completers with registered apprenticeship program sponsors. So it's important to have those discussions with your partners up front to ensure that their willingness to collaborate with you on this grant. And as a requirement of the grant, applicants must have an established connection to at least one registered apprenticeship program or sponsor willing to hire your completers prior to your application submittal. We have a sample commitment letter or form that can be found within this presentation, and we'll also be sending you a resource document following this presentation in the follow-up materials that we send you that you can use when you're talking to potential partners to help them better understand what role they'll have in the grant if they are partnering with you. Secondly, we have the strategies for long-term success, which is i.e. the sustainability through your partnerships. So successful programs will work collaboratively with partners to promote registered apprenticeship as the preferred program for creating a skilled workforce and developing career pathways. Third, you have access to appropriate support services or that one-stop connection. So an important element for success of the participants in the pre-apprenticeship programs is reducing barriers to attendance. So by providing support services such as those available through the one-stop career centers or provided through grant funding, this helps to ensure participation and therefore leads to successful programming. Fourth, we have the promote greater use of registered apprenticeship. So not only from an employer standpoint, where registered apprenticeship is framed as a viable method for training and maintaining a workforce, but also from the participant standpoint, presenting an alternative career or education option, especially those from underrepresented or underserved populations who may not have that type of exposure to these types of programs. And then fifth, we have the meaningful hands-on training that does not displace paid employees. So quality pre-apprenticeship programs will also include hands-on training. And what this does is it helps ensure participants gain exposure to the real-life application of the skills that they're learning and provides training similar to that of a registered apprenticeship program, which again, therefore prepares them for a registered apprenticeship program further. You'll see at the bottom of this page, we also have a link to the USDOL's 102323 document, and that provides more details if needed. It's very extensive. Next slide, please. So pre-apprenticeship programs that target high growth, high vacancy, or emerging industries are highly encouraged to apply. This is including but not limited to advanced manufacturing, biopharma/life sciences, energy, utility, and infrastructure, retail, hospitality, and tourism, financial services or insurance, transportation, logistics, and distribution, information technology/cybersecurity, renewable energy/green economy, healthcare, STEM related occupations, construction or building trades, including lead abatement, public service, educational services, and early childhood education. So we encourage application in these applications from these industries, but if your industry does fall outside of one of those listed, that does not preclude you from applying for funding. You can still apply. Organizations awarded in fiscal year 2025 round one PACE contracts, they're not eligible to apply for this round. Round two applications are only open to those funded, not funded in round one of 25, as well as any new applicants. Next slide, please. PACE aims to strengthen access to registered apprenticeships for individuals by recruiting from targeted populations and providing appropriate services to enable participation. So our target populations, where a greater weight will be given to proposals able to recruit from the following, are women, minorities, youth, unemployed, vocational/post-secondary students, ex-offenders, veterans, persons with disability, WEO eligible individuals, and underrepresented populations. As mentioned before, as an element of the quality pre-apprenticeship program is to offer support to participants to reduce barriers. So in developing your budget or your proposal, you can include requests for funding for supportive services. And we have an example of some of what those supportive services could include. We have childcare, transportation, obtaining a driver's license, expungement programs, communicating criminal background to employers, housing services, addressing substance abuse, obtaining high school equivalency diploma or a GED, mentoring, guidance or counseling, and financial literacy. Next slide, please. So program structure ideas. To aid you with developing your proposal, we put together a suggested outline of a successful program, which might allow you to structure enough time to anticipate to be able to carry out the anticipated goals of your contract. So contracts they would be for 18 months, and they're anticipated to be from June 15th of 25 through December 14th of 26. So we have that with months 1 through 3. You would have the recruitment and the organization, where you'd focus on organizing your program and beginning that recruitment and screening. Months 4 through 14, you would have the training and support. So you would administer your training, you'd provide assessments to participants for support, and you continue with the recruitment or enrolling for any additional cycles of training that you may have. And then months 15 through 18 is where you would have your placements. So the completers of your PACE program must all receive a quality placement outcome as defined in this NGO. Those applicants awarded should have strong partnerships, again, as we talked about earlier, with registered apprenticeship sponsors, also employers or post-secondary vocational schools based on how your proposal is written, to ensure placements occur in a timely manner after the training is completed. All placements must be achieved prior to the end of the 18-month contract in order to reflect good performance and compliance with the contract, just so you know. Again, the above is just an outline. It's not a requirement, but we thought it might be helpful to kind of provide a little bit of structure in what we're looking for with these types of programs. Okay, next slide, please. So funding incentives and expectations. So stipends. Applicants can include needs-based stipends for their budgets to enable participations. The stipend is not a wage. It is intended to cover incidental costs incurred while attending training. Payments can be paid to the participants on a weekly or biweekly basis and cannot exceed $250 per week. For the outcomes, PACE grantees are expected to graduate at least 80% of participants and facilitate placements into one of the following quality outcomes. So for this grant, we require a minimum of 25% of program completers be placed into a USDOL registered apprenticeship program. Again, that's why you need that partnership with a program sponsor. Employment related to the pre-apprenticeship training received at no lower than a rate of no lower than $16 per hour, or admission into a post-secondary or occupational career training program consistent with the pre-apprenticeship program that they trained for. Funding for fiscal year 2025 round 2 is expected to be $4 million. It's contingent upon available funds, and competitive proposals will have a maximum cost per head of $12,000. So this means that when you take the number of individuals that you're going to serve and you divide that by your budget, you need to ensure that it does not exceed $12,000 per head. So for example, if your overall budget is $120,000, that would mean you could only serve 10 individuals with that. So that concludes an overview of the PACE program and pre-apprenticeship. I'm going to hand the presentation now over to Lauren Kemper-DiFilippo. She's going to go over the application process with you.
Just for clarity on that last statement, Tammy, it would be the minimum number of participants you would have to serve would be 12. You can serve more than 12. It could more than 10. It can be less than $12,000 per participant, but the maximum allowable would be $12,000 per participant.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Kemper-DiFilippo. I'm a contract administrator, and if you were awarded a grant, I would work with you for the facilitation of your grant. So here I'm going to talk about the application process. Next slide, please. So the first steps, if you're considering applying, you want to ensure that you are an eligible entity to apply, and you can refer to the list on page 12 of the NGO. That the authorized official who's listed on your letter of intent is registered in IGX, and information is page 24 of the NGO. This authorized official submits the letter of intent via email. Again, you want to register first before submitting this letter of intent. And you can refer to pages 24 and 30 of the NGO. NJDOL approves the AO in IGX, and then we will provide access to the application. That you obtain your tax clearance certificate from the New Jersey Division of Taxation, and you can refer to pages 27 and 31, and that you register with the New Jersey Department of Treasury using NJ START and reference page 31 of the NGO. Although obtaining the tax clearance certificate is low on this list, it's actually pretty important, and that you should jump on that right away, because it's not always just an overnight process. There could be a backlog or such. So you don't want to run into problems with not having the tax clearance certificate in time. So please work on getting that. Next slide, please. Here is the template for the letter of intent. You must submit this template and fill it out, only this information, no more, no less. It's basically asking your business, the industry and occupation area that this grant will cover, your federal ID number, your unique entity identifier or UEI if you have one, and your business address, the name of the authorized official with their contact information, and the main point of contact for the PACE application. And both the people listed on this letter of intent need to register in IGX. You will sign it and date it, and then you will email it to the apprenticeship unit at dol.nj.gov. Once we receive this, we will review registration, review that the letter is complete, and then we will then provide you access to the application. Next slide, please. Oh.
If the authorized official or the main point of contact for the application are already registered with IGX, they do not have to re-register. They will have to log in and make sure that their username and password is active. Sometimes they go inactive if it's been sitting around and not being used for a while. But ultimately, you do not need to re-register. You can check when you submit your letter of intent if your registration is still active at that time. But otherwise, if you know you've never been registered in IGX, you have to make sure that you register.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So your proposal components of your application, and these are the required documents, and all the required information must be submitted in the IGX system. The applicant information, the counties you're going to serve, your consortium partners, any previous funding, if applicable, PACE deliverables, executive summary, your program narrative, your implementation plan. You'll provide a copy of the tax clearance certificate, your budget summary and details, and then any miscellaneous attachments that you want to include with your application. Next slide, please. So let's look at some of the components. So the proposal, your executive summary, that includes your projected project plan chart, and we'll take a look at that. But the attachment is in the NGO, it's page 32. The overview of your proposal, highlighting key points in relation to this NGO. Your narrative is detailed objectives, your plan structure, and anticipated quality outcomes, which includes your recruitment strategy, your training design and outline, work experiences, the core partnerships and relationships, which is your connection to a registered apprenticeship and connection to employers, and or your post-secondary placement after pre-apprenticeship completion, if applicable, support services, the expected outcomes, your administrative responsibilities, and notating any past performance. Next slide, please. So here is that attachment, the projected project plan. So you're going to include the chart with your executive summary, and for each quarter of the grant, you're going to enter the following information. The participants to be enrolled, which is the total number of PACE participants enrolled, both new and previously enrolled. The expenditures, which is the estimated expenditure of PACE grant funds for each quarter of the grant in each of the following categories. Personnel, which is salary and fringe benefits. Non-personnel could be marketing materials, office supplies, etc. And direct student costs, which are like books, instruction materials, and supplies, stipends, safety equipment, etc. Next slide, please. So the implementation plan. So here you're going to describe how the training plan will be implemented, your project schedule, which is to include the timeline for benchmarks and program completion, as well as recruitment and placement dates. And if there's multiple training rounds, you're going to include the start and end dates for each round. Your retention support strategy and alternate placements, your outcome timeline, which is to describe the anticipated outcomes and timeline for your placements, and your program sustainability plan, which is your strategy for program continuance absent of this grant funding. Next slide, please. The evaluation criteria. Note that all applications are considered new applications and will be evaluated based on quality, comprehensiveness, completeness, accuracy, and appropriateness to the NGO. This is a competitive process, and applications are reviewed by a selection committee using a pre-established set of requirements. Note that awarded applicants will have administrative responsibilities, including but not limited to the archiving of records, completing monthly reports, and attending required meetings. Next slide, please. So the IGX registration. So if, like Bill alluded to, if you're a new grantee, this will be new to you. So you want to click New User, which will begin the registration process. And where it is the program name, you're going to use the word PACE. And then when you're finished, you're going to click Register, and that'll submit this new user registration. Next slide, please. So now you're going to enter your username and password and log in. Next slide, please. Under My Opportunities box, you're going to click Filter to open the options for searching. Next slide, please. The PACE grant application should be listed under My Opportunities. If not, you can follow the steps below to filter and search for the application. For the provider, you want to select New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development, NJDOL, from the drop-down menu. And under name, you're going to type PACE, and then click the search button. The PACE grant application will appear under My Opportunities, and once you've located the application, you're going to click the hyperlink to start. Next slide, please. You're going to review the grant program description and agreement language, and then you're going to click agree. You agree. If you do not, you decline. Next slide, please. So here are the application pages and the navigation. So after selecting agree, you will be brought to the landing page for your grant application. All the pages that need to be completed will be listed to the left-hand side of the page under application. As you go through the application, you have the ability to navigate to different pages of the application by clicking the desired page of the left menu. And you can skip around, you could come and go as you please. When the page is satisfied, you will get check marks, so you know that all the information is entered. If there's an error, you will also get an indicator, which is an exclamation point. Next page, please. Now to submit the application. So only the authorized official or agency administrator can submit a completed application. When you're ready to submit your application, you're going to use the navigation panel on the left side of the page to find the section labeled status options. Select application submitted to begin the submission process. If a document validation page appears, this means that there are errors that need to be corrected before the application can be submitted. So you want to revisit those pages with the errors and make the necessary revisions. Then try to do the submission process again. After selecting application submitted, a box will appear asking you to confirm that you would like to submit the application. If you do, you click OK and you'll finish the submission. And if you change your mind, you'll click cancel to exit. Next page, please. So important dates to remember. The submission of the letter of intent and registration IGX must be completed before you can start your application in IGX. So noon, April 10th, 2025, the letter of intent is due. And noon, April 17th, 2025, the application is due. Final decisions on award will be communicated to you, the applicant, approximately 45 days following the panel review. Next slide, please. And here is the contact information for the New Jersey Office of Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning. James Manning, he's the director. Bill Sarbuck, he's the chief. And then all general inquiries can be directed to apprenticeship unit at dol.nj.gov, which is a shared mailbox, so it'll reach the whole team. So it's very important that you use that as opposed to sending an email to one of us, because if we're out of the office, you will not get a response. So please use the apprenticeship unit shared mailbox. Next slide, please. All right, now we're going to have time for questions. So please type your questions in the chat box and they will be addressed by Bill Starbuck.
All right, thank you guys so much for the information. A couple of pieces of information. One, this is a lot of information, and we know that it is. Please don't get overwhelmed. I know we just went over the application process and the IGX system. Once you've submitted your letter of intent and we've approved your access to the application, we'll be providing you with a user guide. That user guide will help you to understand exactly what kind of information it is that you are going to need to provide. That user guide will step-by-step process provide you with the details needed in order to understand how to complete the application, how to start the application, and how to submit the application. So we gave you a very brief, quick explanation and showed you it, but the user guide that we provide you once you get your letter of intent submitted and we give you access to the application will be a little more detailed. Secondarily, as far as those due dates for the letter of intent and the applications, we try to be as strict about those as we can. Ultimately, this is a competitive process, and so when we say April 17th at noon, please make sure you get your applications completed and submitted by April 17th at noon. There's very little chance that we'll be extending the application deadline for this grant. Ultimately, it's up to you guys to make sure you can get them submitted timely. So please pay attention to the dates, stay on top of all the steps and all the things that we've talked about during this presentation as far as what's necessary for you as an applicant, and please, if you have any questions, reach out to us. If you're having any issues, reach out to us and we'll try and provide you with direction. It is difficult for us during a competitive time frame to answer questions for you unless we're in these types of sessions where I'm speaking to a large group and we're going to be sharing the information with the public. So I may not be able to, and the team may not be able to answer your questions directly if you reach out to us about your application. But if you're running into any issues with the database or with something that you're working on, that is something we can help you with. And the faster you let us know about those issues, the faster we can assist you in order to get those things taken care of. So please get on top of getting your LOIs submitted as soon as possible, starting your applications as soon as possible, completing them and getting them submitted to us as soon as possible. Even though there's a deadline doesn't mean you can't submit it. And if for some reason after you've submitted something's changed and you want to update your application, we would send it back to you to be able to update it and resubmit it to us. You would have to make sure you resubmit it though. So things just to take into consideration with your process and what you're going to do next. I want to make sure I share that. So, going to the chat so that I can try and answer your questions. Let's see. First question we have is who is the training curriculum approved by? So your pre-apprenticeship training curriculum is going to be reviewed with your sponsoring registered apprenticeship partner. They would be the ones who would want to review your program and make sure that it is in line with their registered apprenticeship program. Sometimes you may even be getting those pre-apprenticeship programs approved through USDOL if they're counting that pre-apprenticeship program as hours towards their registered apprenticeship program. One thing for you to take into consideration here is that you have to have that partnership with an approved registered apprenticeship sponsor up front. You cannot get that partnership after you've applied for the grant. If you apply for the grant, you do not supply us with proof of a partnership with a registered apprenticeship sponsor and that registered apprenticeship sponsor being approved by USDOL prior to the application submittal, it will not be considered for funding because we ultimately are, this program is considered a pre-apprenticeship program, which means that it's leading to registered apprenticeship as it says within this notice of grant opportunity. And we've gone over a couple times during this presentation. There's a minimum requirement of 25% of all of your completers going into registered apprenticeship. So without a proper partnership with somebody who's already got an approved program, you wouldn't be eligible to receive these funds. The next question is, what is facilitated entry and or articulation? That's just a process. So facilitated entry is entry into your program, and then an articulation agreement would be something you'd have with your registered apprenticeship sponsor so that you have a process for you to accept participants and then them go through the training and then them start with the registered apprenticeship sponsors upon completion of the pre-apprenticeship program. So like I said, it's just a workflow, a process for the participants and for your grant, or for your program. How do we connect to apprenticeships? So first things first, if you don't have any connections to registered apprenticeship programs, this is probably not a good fit for you and what it is you're trying to do as far as a program. There are other grant funds that are available through the department, and you can look into those. But ultimately, you can look on apprenticeship.gov, which is USDOL's website. You can check by occupation, you could check by county, you could check by a lot of things to find out what apprenticeable occupations and what apprenticeship programs are approved within those occupations and within the counties of the state in which you are looking to provide services. An important piece of information is that all of your participants have to be New Jersey residents, and all of your placements have to be with New Jersey employers or New Jersey programs, registered apprenticeship sponsored programs. The main point of contact has to register as well. So in most cases, the main point of contact is going to be it may be the CEO as well. But the main point of contact in some cases could just be an employee for the business, what we call an agency administrator. So your CEO is your authorized official in the IGX database. Any other staff that work for the CEO who could start things but can't like sign off on contracts, that would be what we'd consider an agency administrator. So if you are going to be working on the application in any capacity and helping to complete it, then yes, you would want to get registered. Anybody who's going to be utilizing the database to complete any aspect of the application needs to register in the IGX database. But the AO, that authorized official, that CEO, must also be registered, because that's the person who's going to be responsible for signing off on the contract if an award is given. Will this presentation be made available? Yes, we will provide you with the PowerPoint. We'll also provide you with the a frequently asked questions document, and as a part of that frequently asked questions document, at the very end, you'll find a link to a recording of this session. So with that link will provide you with the recording as well as a transcript. What are the allowable costs under direct student services budget category? Any service, any costs that are directly related to the training itself when it comes to providing that training to your participants. That would be what would be listed under direct budget categories. There are some drop downs on there, but they include a lot of things. You can look at those categories upon us giving you access to the application, but ultimately your budget can include anything that's specific to the services that are being provided in order to be able to provide that training. Can grant funds be used for capital construction or renovation projects? So technically, these grant funds are not meant for construction or renovation of buildings. They're also not meant really to cover rent or to purchase any large ticket items. The funding that we're providing to you is meant to help offset the requirements and needs of your organization in order to provide the training to these individuals. So that's what it should be covering. What is the difference between a program sponsor and a registered apprenticeship? So the program sponsor is just USDOL's fancy term for the registered apprenticeship program lead. So as a program sponsor, you will either be an employer who creates a registered apprenticeship with USDOL so that they can train individuals as registered apprentices and hire them for their own company, or you're what's called an intermediary, which means you're an organization of some sort, maybe even a school district or a community college or a union, who is going to get a registered apprenticeship program approved as the sponsor. So you would be the sponsor, and then you would work with multiple employers to place these individuals. That's the difference between the two types of registered apprenticeship programs that exist. But ultimately, the program sponsor is that agency that gets the program approved with the USDOL. Is there a percentage for admin? If so, what is it? The NGO speaks to this specifically, but there is a maximum allowance of 10% for admin costs. Admin is included in the $12,000 per participant. As Tammy said earlier, when the math is done, you do it against all funds that are being requested from the grant. So if you're asking for $120,000 divided by 12,000, tells you that you have to serve a minimum of 10 participants. You can serve more than 10 participants, but you cannot serve less than 10 participants. Is the industry category in the LOI binding once submitted? We ask you to provide us with your best um, um, what it is that you expect to provide to be submitting an application for. But no, there's no binding. It's not contractual there. It would be contractual at the time of us going to contract. So your application should be within the industry in which you're looking to provide services in. If your application isn't, then technically, why would we approve a grant in an industry and then you change it later? That doesn't necessarily make sense. You know what I mean? The panel is reviewing your application based on what you submitted and scoring it based on that. If you change it after the fact, it would negatively impact the competitiveness of your application. So I would say on the LOI, no, but your application, yes. When you say previous funding, do you mean have we done business with DOL or have we gotten a grant? So there's a couple of answers to this. We have a previous funding page within our application. You would only list within that any previous funding that you've received from the Department of Labor. But you may provide us with past performance on grants that have been similar or just like this grant program so that you could show effectiveness of your programs, demonstrated effectiveness of your programs in the past. But that would be a part of your narrative, not a part of the previous funding page. Should applicants focus on only one industry apprenticeship pathway in their proposal? So to answer your question, I can't tell you what you should and shouldn't do. It's really up to you what you want to do. I think it comes down to making sure that you can clearly articulate what it is your program is trying to accomplish. If you can do that and be in multiple industries or multiple apprenticeship pathways, by all means, nobody's here to tell you what to do with your program. It really comes down to whether or not you can do that in a way that makes sense to the reader and is capable of meeting the needs and the requirements of this grant program, as well as the needs and requirements of your partner agencies that you're partnering with. Is there a list of registered apprenticeships? So, as I said earlier, if you go to apprenticeship.gov, you will find all of the approved apprenticeship programs in the state of New Jersey. You have to do the research yourself. I don't provide you with any of that detail specifically, but ultimately on apprenticeship.gov, you can find out any programs that have already been approved by USDOL. How do I reach out to in order to become an apprenticeship sponsor? Who do I? So you'll reach out to USDOL. We're going to provide you with a uh, a document that gives you the contact information based on the county in which you reside. You'll reach out to the technical representative for USDOL, and they will work with you in order to get an apprenticeship program approved. I would tell you that if you don't have a registered apprenticeship program already approved, that this probably is not a good time for you to apply for the PACE grant. You would need to get that program up and running and approved prior to being able to be considered for this grant, and the likelihood of you being able to do that between now and April 17th is probably pretty slim. It would most likely take you a little longer than this time frame. I'm not saying it can't be done, I'm just saying it might be difficult. But we will, when we email you all the other stuff, we'll also email you the contact information on who you can reach out to at USDOL in order to get started on getting a program approved through them for a registered apprenticeship. I would like to apply to this program as a PACE trainer and apprenticeship sponsor. Okay, yeah, same. The answer is still the same for that. How long will the weekly $250 be paid? So that $250 is a maximum amount. It's not a required amount. You can provide $250 stipends, maximum of $250 per week to your participants. The reason that we allow for you to provide those stipends is to hopefully help your participants to stay involved in the program. It's usually meant to cover things like childcare, transportation, the things that get in the way of us being able to continue to attend the trainings. But that stipend is not required. It is basically a supportive service that you'd want to be providing to your participants, and ultimately it can be up to $250 per week. Uh, it doesn't, there is no mandate on how long it has to be, just like there's no mandate on the fact that you actually have to provide it to them. It would be a part of your program, and it's up to you to determine how long, how much, um, and or if you will have it at all. It just really has that maximum of $250 per week that you could provide. The other requirement on the stipends is that it has to be provided to the participants minimally biweekly. You can provide it to them weekly or biweekly. You cannot provide it to them monthly or every 6 months or when they meet benchmarks. It's meant, like I said, to not be an incentive to them meeting benchmarks, but more of a benefit to them to be able to participate in the program. Brand new apprentice program since February 2025 for a restoration industry. Which grant do we fit into, the Gaines grant or the PACE grant? Technically, you could fit into either one. Um, if you have a registered apprenticeship program and you're an employer and you want to hire individuals and train them and place them into your business, then that's Gaines. If there is some licensing, some credentialing that they need to get before you hire them, and they're going to need to go through a process in order to get through that and become ready to enter into your registered apprenticeship program, then that would be PACE. How do we contact? We are the NJDOL. So you would reach out to us through the apprenticeship unit at dol.nj.gov. If you're referencing how do you contact USDOL because you're interested in starting up a registered apprenticeship program, as I said earlier, we will provide you with the contact information, and the contact information will provide you with the counties in which each of their what they call ATRs are responsible. You'll reach out to the ATR that's responsible for the county in which you reside here in New Jersey, and they will assist you with getting a registered apprenticeship program started. Must a DOL registered apprenticeship program provider register with NJDOL Office of Apprenticeship? No. Once you are registered with USDOL, we have access to check and make sure that that registration is there and active. Um, so that would be done to verify any partnerships that you're saying within your application that exist are active and that their registered apprenticeship programs are approved. But no, the USDOL approved provider does not have to register with NJDOL as well. Being a pre-apprenticeship, how can we connect with a registered apprenticeship? So, Richard, I think you've asked this question 3 different ways, and I don't think my answer is any different. You have to find registered apprenticeship programs that are within the occupation in which you're interested in providing a pre-apprenticeship program. You have to make contact with them and develop a partnership, a relationship with those individuals. Once you've developed them, then you would work out a process for your program to be reviewed by them, approved by them, and then develop as we said earlier, entry articulation agreement with them for your program to then lead these individuals into their registered apprenticeship program. Um, that's the best. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. That's the best answer I'm going to be able to give on that question. Um, the program is a reimbursable program, so there is no startup funds provided with PACE. The expectation is that you'll be using the funds through the time frame of the program. You'll put the money. You'll be capable of upfronting those funds, and then we will provide you with a reimbursement for anything that you've paid out on a monthly basis. What is the minimum maximum number of hours for education and training the pre-apprenticeship program must have? That is not something that I can tell you. It really depends on the industry. It depends on the needs of the type of training you're looking to provide. It is not a set answer at all. Um, it's something that you would work out with your registered apprenticeship sponsor partner. It's also something that you may want to speak with USDOL about if you have a sponsor that you're connected to. They can check with their ATR who set up their program to see whether or not that there's a set number of hours. But usually, you know that pre-apprenticeship program is going to be aligned very closely with what the registered apprenticeship program is going to be doing, so that they can ensure a proper connection to the next step, which is the entry into the registered apprenticeship program. Yes, the meeting schedule is about to end. Action items for this meeting. Okay, I'm not really ensure that the authorized official listed on the letter of intent is registered in IGX. Okay. Not sure why AI is talking to me. It's a new one. Can the registered apprenticeship program apply for PACE to provide pre-apprenticeship? Absolutely. If you have a registered apprenticeship program and but you have a need for there to be a pre-apprenticeship program in order for them to enter into your registered apprenticeship program, you can apply for PACE and you could be the partner agency that provides the registered apprenticeship program. You would list yourself within the notice of grant opportunity as the registered apprenticeship sponsor so that we would be able to check and balance that in the database and make sure that it your program is approved by USDOL. Any other questions? If anybody is having trouble with using the chat, please feel free. You can unmute yourself at this point and ask your questions. Otherwise, I think we're all set and we're done. As we said earlier, we will ensure that we provide you with the presentation as well as the contact information for USDOL, our FAQ, our frequently asked questions document that will include a recording of this session. We will be holding another session here in a couple weeks. If you wanted to schedule yourself and attend that as well, you are more than welcome to. These sessions are where you can ask pretty much any question that you have, and I can pretty much answer any question that you have. So if you have questions and you reach out to us and we tell you we can't answer them because of the competitive nature, you can attend that next session, and I would be able to answer them in that session a little more in depth. Beyond the fact that I can't tell you what to write and what to say, I can pretty much answer any other questions that you have. So um, that would be the best route to go. But if anything comes up as far as issues while you're going through the process, always feel free to reach out to us at apprenticeshipunit@dol.nj.gov, as it says on the screen. Otherwise, thank you all for your time. Thank you for your questions. And thank you. Hopefully, we look forward to seeing your applications and working with you closely in the near future.